Yo, 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 it's ODB from OLP back with another episode. And I'm excited to sit down and talk a little bit about one of my favorite films of all time. On this episode, it's going to be a little bit different. It'll be a condensed episode. I'll only talk about one topic, which is kind of a Goonies top 10. More so, I want to call it, something along the lines of some rarities, maybe some items that you weren't aware of. Maybe you're a casual fan of this film and you've seen it, but it's been a long time. What I like to do is not necessarily go through a top 10 you didn't know, because hopefully some of the fans that have come here to check out this video, hopefully you'll maybe pick up on something that you weren't aware of. I want to thank all of the different enthusiasts, right? The film enthusiasts, the different fandom pages out there. There's so many great people, especially social media pages that I follow. And, over the course of time, it's cool to learn more about one of our favorite films of all time. If you're listening via any podcast app, thank you. Please subscribe or consider subscribing. You're going to get an enhanced experience via YouTube if you check me out there, because I will be sharing some photos, some stills, if you will, as well as some video, some archive video, typically without sound, right, to avoid any kind of copyright challenges. But again, this episode, kind of a top 10 and more, if you will. And hopefully, as a Goonies fan, you'll pick up on maybe something, at least one thing. That's my goal, that you maybe never noticed or did not know about this epic film. Now, I do want to mention on this episode, it'll be a little bit more condensed, as I stated. And I'm not going to go through the normal banter with my co-host, Mike, who's not on this week. But I will give a huge shout out to our title sponsor. Every June, if you're a car or truck enthusiast, you got to make it out to Biloxi. This year, it's the 21st, 22nd, 23rd of June for Scrapin' the Coast. You could go to Scrapin, SCRAPIN, thecoast.com, one of the biggest, baddest car and truck shows around. This is a Mini Truck Hall of Fame inductee, and it's just truly an awesome event. Some of you may be thinking, hey, we're going on vacation, we're going to be around the Biloxi area. Come check out Scraping the Coast. It's a fun-filled family event, and one of the biggest reasons and draws to this event is the fact that it is indoor, it is outdoor, but the air conditioning on the inside is a great way to cool off. Thank you so much to our title sponsor, rest in peace, Greg Miller, and scrapingthecoast.com for more information. We hope to see you out there. Come see us, OLP, indoors. When you come through the spectator gate, you're going to hang a left, and you'll see us right there in that first corner. Typically, that'll be the path that you'll take as you stroll around and check out all the awesome rides indoors at Scraping the Coast. So that's enough of the business for this episode. That's the only shout out I'm going to give this time. We've kind of moved to a bi-weekly episode release, if you will, at least for the summer. And this is kind of a special edition of OLP, again, talking about Goonies Top 10. So let's jump right in. Now, I want to give a few just high-level details about this film. Maybe you've never heard of it. Maybe you love OLP and you've been listening to every episode. Hopefully you've heard of this film. It was released in 1985 on June 7th, and ironically enough, it fell under Steven Spielberg's production. And, of course, Richard Donner, rest in peace, he directed this epic film. Ironically enough, I'm a huge fan of Back to the Future. I would go back and forth in my head. It's so ironic. These films were released just a little under 30 days from each other, June 7th, and, of course, right before the July 4th weekend, about a month later, Back to the Future, both in 1985, if you can believe it. There's other tie-in that I won't necessarily cover on this episode, more than likely, but the thing I will mention is in the Amblin universe, Steven Spielberg's production company, they basically happen on the same weekend, if you can imagine that. So, think October 85. Again, though the films, of course, were filmed late 84 into 85, and they both came out June and July of 85. But a very young Chris Columbus, not the one that sailed across the ocean, but Chris Columbus, along with Steven Spielberg, wrote the film. Now, Chris Columbus, it may not, if you're just a casual movie fan, may not be a household name to you, but he's been involved in a ton of films, including Goonies, of course, helping co-write it. I think often, he's looked at as the writer of it, but I think Steven Spielberg also had a huge hand in it. He was tied to Gremlins, one of my other favorite films, of course, Adventures in Babysitting. He directed Home Alone, so certainly you've heard of and or watched that every year like I do. So he did direct Home Alone. He was tied in with Mrs. Doubtfire, and that's just to name a few. So he's been around a long time, and he co-wrote or wrote, if you will, this awesome film. Now, the film was under Warner Brothers Studios, and in the behind the scenes / making of the Goonies, plus various interviews, Steven Spielberg and Richard Donner mentioned how the idea came about. And if you go on YouTube, you can find a shorter behind the scenes making of, if you will, that was produced by, I think it was Frank Marshall, if I remember correctly. And Steven kind of mentions in that shorter 6.5, 7-minute edit that he wanted to do a film about some ordinary kids who basically go on this amazing adventure. Nothing special, if you will, about the kids other than the friendship, I think, and the fact that they live in this area and they're going through this challenge of potentially losing the area where they live, right? The premise of the film. Now, believe it or not, from what I've read over the years, Steven Spielberg came up with the idea for the Goonies while he was busy shooting the famous film The Color Purple. Now, as the story goes, it was on this Whoopi Goldberg-led film set that he began to wonder about children and the adventures they make up to fill their time. And I think if you watch a lot of Steven Spielberg's films, I wouldn't say like I'm a deep study of his films. I mean, I've watched most of them. There's some people that obviously know the ins and outs of every single film, but a lot of it ties back to his childhood. And I so love a lot of the films that he's produced and been involved with, including, of course, the Goonies that we're talking about today. Now, I believe it's an unauthorized making of the film. I think you can watch a condensed version of it on Amazon Prime. At some point, you can watch kind of that condensed version. If you can go out there and find it, I think the condensed version is maybe 15 or 20 minutes, maybe. And Dick Donner, also known as Richard Donner, so rest in peace to him, the great, he mentions in that of course, him and Steven and possibly a few others, they had jumped in a van in some of the pre-production, and they kind of cruised up and down the West Coast. And I guess when they were heading north, the way I understood it was they kind of fell in love. They saw this quaint little town, Astoria, and they kind of fell in love with it. They saw the bridge, they saw this area, the time of year and whatnot. And that's when they decided, I'm assuming early 84, depending, I don't know if it was truly pre-production or they just had these ideas flowing through their head, maybe in 83, but basically, early 80s, 83, 84, they're cruising up the West Coast, and again, they fall in love. So I am going to go through these in kind of a countdown just to kind of make it easier. A lot of people, including myself, I love these type of videos from the Knight Rider historians and so many others on YouTube. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. Comment below if there's something that you learned that you weren't aware of. Certainly I appreciate that. And I'll say this, there's a couple of Easter eggs in my little man cave here, a few, give or take, that you may see throughout tied into the Goonies. And something I will say is I'm not going to cover every in and out. There's some really, really good videos out there. There's great websites, the different fandom sites that cover a lot of detail. But of course, for YouTube, I want to try to keep it a little bit high level. And that's hard for me because I love to talk. So I want to jump right in with number 10. And number 10 is the Fratelli's Hideout. So something that you may not know, kind of a gem, if you will, and that's going to be the theme, again, going forward, is the hideout was only built for the film. Now, in the book that you may see over here, titled 3 Weeks with the Goonies by Mick Alderman. He discusses this exact topic. And again, I'll show some images here. One of the key things I think is so cool is seeing these behind the scenes images. Some of these were taken by obviously mostly folks that were part of the production. And of course, now some of them have been passed along. The good thing about a publication like what Mick put together, shout out to Mick, I emailed him one time, is there's always going to be kind of photo credit given. And that's something that I really hold near and dear to who I am. I want to give these folks credit for giving us these gems. But on this one image here, it says the exposed end of a camouflage picnic table, right? A sign near the restaurant informed and reassured curious park visitors that this was only temporary. So you could imagine someone going to this spot and realizing, hey, wow, what are they doing here? And this photo here is from Patrick Lines, I believe his name is, and again, he's credited in the book. Now, on this other image, the construction is underway on the restaurant. Note the chair on the roof. He says, this is from Mick, in the photo to the left. There's probably a story behind this, but I don't know what it is. The photo at the right shows the as yet unpainted structure. So this was from David Ladd, and then courtesy of one of the county historical societies. It's always neat, especially as a child growing up, seeing these films, even kind of as an adult watching them. So much goes into the production of it, the building of these facilities and, the interiors, the exteriors, that really the movie magic brings it all together. And, as a child, I thought, hey, they're creeping into some, little hideout, right? And it's so cool, again, the talented cast and crew behind these films that bring us that movie magic. Here's yet another angle, of course, on the bottom of the unpainted restaurant, the painting and signage near completion. Again, Patrick Lines took these photos. So if you ever want to go visit any of these locations, it's super simple. Many of you know this. You can Google the stuff, and there's a huge community. There's some great Facebook groups. Shout out to my friend Sean at All About Los Angeles on Instagram. He visits so many album cover locations, film locations, music videos. I mean, it's really become a huge hobby. And of course, these locations you can find just through a normal Google search. When I visited, it was super cool. I landed in Oregon. I was going up there for a big car and truck show, and I ended up, planning this out. I drove pretty far out of the way to go all the way over to the coast to visit these locations. And of course, doing so was just awesome. I just loved it. Now, one thing I always tend to forget here is the filming location that I'm showing you here, and and I always want to make sure I say this right. It's Ecola, Ecola, Ecola State Park. And again, if you just Google that, or you Google Goonies filming locations, we'll talk about a few more here. There's like Goonies wiki fandom pages and things like that. So there's certainly a lot of information out there. But that is the Fratelli's hideout. And again, the super cool thing about this is it was built only for the film. Now, I do want to show you this image when I went and visited July of 2019. This is what it looks like. A lot of times, from what I've seen on different folks that I follow on social media or mostly on YouTube, there's some talks a lot of times about if you were looking straight at this image, to my back would be where the kids come up with the bikes, right? So they, it looks like they're climbing the hill with their bikes, and then the hideout would have been straight ahead. You can see the tree line as well if you kind of compare the images. But oftentimes, if you would spin like 180 degrees to my left, you would look out and see the ocean, and a lot of people think that that's where the hideout was. In various YouTube videos, people have pointed out, with Mikey kind of skipping across the ground there, you can see some of the rock formations out in the water. And then, of course, the camera pans, and then it's over here. So this is where the hideout was at. So number 9 filming locations. So let's talk a little bit more specifically in Oregon and then California. So visiting Oregon, like I did, as I mentioned in 2019, I checked out a good amount of the Goonies locations. It was super fun. If you ever have an opportunity, please check it out. What my goal is this year is to get this episode out on Goonies Day, which is known as June 7th. So hopefully many of you will find this and enjoy it. But if there's ever an opportunity to go up, I would even try to plan it around June 7th. Now, I haven't been there for Goonies Day. I visited late July of 2019, about 5 years ago. And again, I had a blast. There's different tours, if I understand correctly. The folks that own the house now, the quote Goonies house, the Walsh's house, that they're fans of the film. I think there's things around that now. When I went, the other owners had it, and there was a lot of discussion about not walking up the hill, climbing the driveway, and things like that. And I really wanted to go up and get a photo in front of the home, but I understood, and people said, hey, you probably could have walked up there, no issue. They didn't want people driving up, but I wanted to understand their privacy, but hopefully I'll make it back. Now, you may not know this, the film's climactic scenes take place at a fictional place called Cauldron Point, and that was filmed at Goat Rock Beach in California. So not all of the scenes, most of them were, of course, in Oregon, but the ending of the film was filmed at Goat Rock Beach. A little bit more on that in a moment. Now, Goat Rock Beach is a sand beach in northwestern Sonoma County, California. Now, you can also note the location is sometimes referred to as Bodega Bay, a town located nearby, and that's where the cast stayed during the production. Now, again, a lot of these sources, I'll try to mention some of them, but there's various DVD commentary. There's a couple of versions of the DVD out there. I've got the 4K. I've got the old original DVD. Some of them will have other gems on it that other versions don't. But additional shots during the end sequence involving the Goonies looking down at the recovered gems in Rosalita's hands, as well as Chunk and Sloth's heart-to-heart. If I recall correctly, they did mention Burbank, and I think those were just a few maybe of the kind of pickup shots maybe they often refer to, but those are very, very kind of minor, I think, in the grand scheme of things. We'll talk a little bit more about the Rosalita and the gems. I don't 100% maybe understand that one. Maybe the one shot of her. There's an alternate ending basically that I'm going to talk about. Some of you have seen about it. Some of you have heard about it, or some of you have seen it. Some of you have heard about it. But Rosalita, she finds the gems and she runs out of the Goonies' house. So I don't know if maybe that one pickup shot of her in the laundry room was maybe filmed there. But certainly she does come out of the home. So I do believe that was the original intention, that they find the gems. Now, one fun fact about this, and again, I talked about the making of the cult classic, The Unauthorized Story of the Goonies 2010. There is a rare DVD. I believe this was produced for one of the Goonies Day celebrations, if I remember correctly. And it's kind of tough to find the entire version of it. Again, the one that you could watch, or if you had Amazon Prime, or if you even buy it on Amazon, I think is a condensed version, if I remember correctly. And I remember that there was a comment in there about they talked about we were in Bodega Bay, and that's what I call him Joe Pants, because I have a hard time saying his last name. But a fun fact about this was the scenes at Goat Rock Beach were filmed on Super Bowl Sunday in 1985. So January 20th, 1985. And I know about where I was that day. I remember even as a kid, 7 years old, I remember watching the Super Bowl with my dad, and I believe that was the year that my dad's dad came over, and it was ironic because he gave me a shirt related to the 1985 Super Bowl. My dad's birthday, rest in peace to my pops, is January 25th. So we often watched the Super Bowl right around his, what I refer to as born day, every year. So Joey Pants, he mentions that they were in Bodega Bay, in this really new hotel. They rented the convention conference hall, and they put a big flat screen, or probably back then it was a pull down screen, and they watched the Super Bowl. So how cool was that? They probably filmed in that early afternoon, and then they went back and they enjoyed the big game, so to speak. So next, I'm moving right along. The Goonies Oath. Some of you know this. The hardcore fans do. I think that this is pretty neat. It was cut from the film, but the Goonies Oath goes, "I will never betray my Goondock friends. We will stick together until the whole world ends, through heaven and hell and nuclear war. Good pals like us stick like tar. In the city or country or the forest or the boonies, I am proudly declared one of the Goonies." So that is the Goonies Oath. Unfortunately, it was cut from the film. My understanding from what I've read was it was meant to be said towards the start of the film. You could kind of maybe imagine Mikey drumming the Goonies up for this adventure. It was cut, of course, from the final product. I believe it was also meant to be delivered when Andy refuses Troy's help at the bottom of the well. I want to say I've seen a scene or I've seen something about that, but it's been a long time. And, finding some of the stuff is pretty easy. I did a quick search before this and I wasn't able to locate it, but that is the Goonies Oath. Okay, so a pickup shot. So what I want to show you is this image here is from a sticker that I purchased at the Oregon Film Museum, which is the jail scene at the beginning of the film. This is a super cool place. This is kind of, I would say, the mecca for Goonies fans. Of course, you could probably argue and say, well, the Goonies house, but going to Astoria, you have to go to the Oregon Film Museum. Again, it used to be a prison or a jail, if you will. Now, this famous image in the film, again, is from a sticker that I picked up there, and this was referred to when Sean Astin and Dick Donner were discussing in the DVD commentary. I think it was Sean Astin brings up that this was a pickup shot. And Dick Donner goes, "Yeah, I remember that." And what's neat is when you go back and you watch it, it is kind of hard to tell. It's edited very, very well, but you can see if you look at the kids, you take a screenshot and you look at this image, they are a little bit older. So after the principal, if I could speak, after the principal photography had concluded, this was, what they refer to as a pickup shot. They were able to kind of recreate the curtains, if you will, and kind of give it that atmosphere. This would have been done, of course, probably on one of the sets, and that this image, is kind of synonymous with the film. So I thought that was kind of neat that if you watch the film, you'll kind of see how it's edited, and it flows really, really good. You would never really know, and it was neat to hear that on the DVD commentary. I'll try to play that real quick, that quick clip right now.
The map.
That's not my map.
You wouldn't be Chunk anymore. You'd just be Chuck.
This is a pickup 6 months later. This shot.
You're right.
This is the money shot.
That's
This
right.
is the money shot.
You're 100%
This is the money shot.
I know the map was 1,000% cleaner.
Okay, next, the movie poster. All right. So many of you know the film artwork for the movie poster, right? Or film artwork, if you will. But did you know there's an alternate version? Okay, there's actually multiple versions. Now, Drew Struzan, if you're a film fan, you'll know his name. He's got a very unique name. He's a very talented artist, and he did some of the most iconic, arguably the greatest of all time, movie posters and artwork, from everything from Back to the Future to Indiana Jones. It's so many films. Some of my favorite films, even though there may be B films, the Police Academy films. I love those films. If you look at the artwork, Alice Cooper, one of his early album covers, of course, as I mentioned, the Goonies. But what's neat is I'm going to show you this here on the this first image is basically the movie poster we all know, and it shows Brand at the top holding on to the stalactites, I think they're referred to as, On the right is an image that Drew Struzan has shared over the course of time. Of course, that's with no overlays and things like that. That's how he would have put it together. And there's even a film, kind of a documentary about him, I think on Amazon Prime. I watched it years ago. Sometimes you can watch it for free. But Drew Struzan, arguably the GOAT, and he did this artwork. Now, the movie poster is relatively the same, but if you did not know, he did draw different versions. I'm going to show you the image here. And those different versions have the different cast and as the, in different positions, if you will, kind of holding on. And those were used in the newspaper ad. So in this newspaper ad that I'm going to show you, it basically has, it's the normal one. But if you were to go back and kind of research, and Drew Struzan's talked about this a little bit, I know he used to be very active on Twitter, and he would kind of tweet out some of the stuff, which was pretty neat. But if you did not know, again, that is some cool stuff about the Goonies. The main poster we all know, of course, is what we remember that's etched in our minds. But again, if you did not know, Drew Struzan, the GOAT, drew that. That's my opinion, of course. Now, here is a movie poster bonus, and I'm going to show you this image here. Now, I'm not going to pronounce the gentleman's name out of respect because I don't want to butcher it, but the original VHS release featured different artwork, and if you Google the Goonies, you'll see, Goonies artwork, Goonies movie posters, whatever. An original movie poster in this version does go for a lot of money. I'm sure there's reprints you can get for a fairly decent amount, but I've seen them upwards of $1,000 plus. But if you want, you can pick up, and I'm going to show you one of the Easter eggs behind me. Hard to see. Here. That is one of the clamshell VHS tapes. Of course, you had the slip cases, and then you had the clamshells. But if you pick up one of the VHS tape, whether it's the clamshell or the slip case, you will see that artwork. Okay, so that artwork was done by a gentleman, Norioshi is his name, and I'll maybe try to put that, depending on how much time I have, I'll try to put that on the screen as well. So it's pretty rare to have an original poster in that version, but hardcore fans know this artwork. And if you haven't seen it in a long time, you might go, wow, yeah, I remember that. Okay, so next, the Goonies are good enough. Now, many of you know Cyndi Lauper. I think she even recently announced a tour. I believe I heard that it was going to be her final tour. But she wrote and performed the famous song. What you may not know is she was not a fan of the song. So I thought that was ironic. It's like, how do you make a song and you're not a fan of it? Like, did you maybe not like the finished product? Did you think it was so too childish? I mean, I don't know. But she basically had referred to perform the song for years. Now, additionally, the song and music video was not finished during the time of the filming of this film in late 84 into 85. So I know what you're thinking, hey, but it's in the film. Believe it or not, that is movie magic. So the Cyndi Lauper version, the song probably wasn't even finished, or it maybe hadn't even started at that point. But in the film, when the video comes on, presumably MTV, I think it was, naturally, right? I mean, that's who played videos back then. Imagine that. The music video was basically superimposed in there with some movie magic, and that's how it was overlaid into the film. Now, during the film, the music video was edited, as I mentioned, into the Walsh's home TV set for the appearance of the Goonies watching the video, as I mentioned. Now, here's something you may not know. The music video itself was filmed in two parts. So part one, the video debuted on MTV before the Goonies opened in theaters. Again, that was June 7th of 85. So think late May, early June, that would have premiered to maybe drum up You get maybe some parents and some kids going, wow, this is cool. What is this? I want to check it out. Now, part 2 premiered on MTV after the movie opened. On the DVD of the Goonies, both parts have been spliced together to form one video with no chapter change in the middle of the two. Now, part 1 of the music video had an extended version released in Japan. The version included more commentary from the voiceover during the opening sequence of the video and extended scenes inside the gas station and with the wrestlers. Part 1 of the video almost did not make it onto the DVD due to Warner Brothers' inability to find the broadcast master tape. Warner Brothers, or Warner, if you will, was ready to start pressing the DVD when someone at VH1 found an unused master broadcast copy of the tape that was sent to the network. In the nick of time, it was digitized and put on the DVD before pressing began. The music video was shot on film and then edited and mastered on videotape for broadcast. Now, the music video was shot at the Warner Brother Ranch, formerly called the Columbia Ranch, okay? This is a movie ranch located. It was located at 411 North Hollywood Way in Burbank, California. Now, opening in 1930s, it was used as a backdrop for so many film and TV shows, don't get me started, of course, by Columbia Pictures. And then Warner Brothers, of course. Now, personally, I never saw anyone even talk about this. I commented this on a few of my favorite YouTube creators that I watch that had an opportunity to visit the backlot there. Now, the backlot, for those that don't know, there's a whole backstory there, pun intended, where it's basically being demolished, unfortunately. So there's some really good guys, Scott on Tape, Kurt Crucial with 80s Life, and of course, Adam the Woo, someone I get a lot of inspiration from. They had an opportunity to visit and really document a lot about it. Now, again, I'm not saying I was the first person or only person. Obviously, people in the production would have known this, but I saw enough behind the scenes and videos from the Warner Brother Ranch that I knew that the video had been filmed there. Number one, of course, just seeing the videos and the photos, it was easy to go, hey, I've seen that before. But number two, of course, it's a Warner Brother production. So we know more than likely they're going to film it on their own property. It's going to save them time and money. And, depending on how quick a turnaround time, it just worked. By the way, Dick Donner, a.k.a. Richard Donner, he directed, of course, the video. You can hear his, in the full version, you can hear his commentary at the beginning. But when I commented that a couple times, and I'm not going to say again, I'm the only one that knew. Maybe some of those folks I mentioned that maybe they already knew, but I think nothing else. I sparked their memory because I would watch their videos and go, yeah, for those that didn't know, that's where the Goonies Are Good Enough video was filmed, and it was super cool. I always loved that little area. Again, so many films were done there, and it's really a travesty that that's all knocked down. There's a lot more to talk about there, but that's what I want to kind of mention, that certainly that little gas station garage, old school garage, was awesome. Now, the last topic on Goonies Are Good Enough, can you mention or think of even one cameo or any of the wrestlers that were in the famed music video? So think back to your youth. For some of you, it wasn't the WWE, it was the WWF. So that's the trivia for this week. If Mike was on, he may have gotten that one. But WWF, World Wrestling Federation, as it was called for so many years, had various pro wrestlers, including Captain Lou Albano, Rowdy Rod Piper, Wendy Richter, the Fabulous Moolah, the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, Freddie Blassie, and Andre the Giant, which I think he was in part 2 only. Now, Steven Spielberg, David Wolf, Lauper's manager, the Goonies cast, except for Kerry Green, Ann Ramsey, Joey Pants, Robert Davey, and John Matuzak. And then the relatively unknown Bangles as a group of female pirates were all in there. Lauper's mother appears as Katrina, Cynthia's mother, and the Sea Hag. So there is a throwback, if nothing else, some old school wrestlers. And it's so fun to me to watch that video. I remember as a kid watching it on MTV. A lot of great memories, and that one definitely brings it back. So next is the treasure map. So some of you have heard this, but what I will tell you is the Goonies 35th anniversary, Warner Brothers did a fantastic job of pulling together some great content for their, quote, box set. This was a 4K set. I think I don't do reviews of transfers and whatnot, but I can tell you when I put that in the Blu-ray player, it just looks fantastic. And of course, I ended up buying it. I already owned it on digital. So Apple, with their Apple, used to be called iTunes, but of course now it's like Apple TV. When you purchase films from there, they always kind of up convert them so you get the better quality. But certainly Warner Brothers, a tip of the cap, if you will. And shout out to Jeff from Mini Garage. He bought me this hat and delivered it to me when he visited last time. Of course, he's Mini Garage. His YouTube channel, and we're mini truckers. If you didn't know, we love mini trucks, but I love so much about pop culture, including the Goonies. That's why I'm doing this special episode. But the real map, for those that did not know, was burned in the film, so it was actually smoked a little bit. I'm going to show you that behind the scenes, or that deleted scene, if you will. But the fate of the original is even worse. Legend has it, Sean Astin has confirmed this from what I've read. His mother, for those that didn't know, was Patty Duke. She discarded it. She thought that it was trash. It looked like a wadded up piece of paper. And if you think about how crazy that is, if you think about movie memorabilia, what you're seeing here this is the replica, of course, that it was included in the box set. I have mine framed in kind of a cheap frame that my wife got me. But if we watch the deleted scene, we'll see that the map was smoked, if you will. And believe it or not, if you go down the bunny trail, one of the production folks, he put his real blood, rumor has it, J. Michael Riva, R-I-V-A, his real blood was on that original map. So, of course, it's not real here in this image, but they did add it for the effect. Apparently, he didn't have anything, and he pricked his finger, supposedly. So let's check out this deleted scene.
Wait a second.
How about 2 candy bars, a tablet, the Crayolas, and a $1.50 in cash?
I'm trying. Cut it out!
Looks like she might be needing some frozen dough.
Cut it out, man. Let it go, man.
Do I hear right?
Cut it out.
Do I hear a goonie telling me what to do?
Hey, give that back. That's what you're messing with.
No.
Cut it out. No, Troy, come on.
Don't do it. They just don't make rolling papers like this anymore.
Troy, cut it out. Cut it out. What's going on? Hey, the way you're puffing on the cigarette kind of reminds me of something,
Oh, yeah, what's up?
Time I kissed your mama. Mikey, my ears. Cut it out.
Hey, you little goonie.
Nobody hits my brother except me.
What? I just can't wait until Monday when my father kicks all you trash out in the street where you belong. While you goonies are piling all your stuff into moving vans, I'll be teeing off on what used to be your front lawn.
Okay, we're getting down to the end. Thanks for bearing with me. I know this video is a little long for some of you YouTube watchers. Next is the pirate ship. Many of you know this epic ending of the film when Mikey and his fellow Goonies find One-Eye Willie's famous ship and treasure. I'll pipe in a little bit of video here, but for those that did not know, the ship was called the Inferno, and it was built specifically for the film. Many know that from kind of doing even light research on kind of top 10 things you didn't know about the film. Now, I remember when Brand, when he went on, of course, he goes on Conan years ago, and Conan brought up the fact, because they were at Warner Brothers Studios, he said, hey, you're almost in the same spot. And I think there was a little confusion about the stage number, but this was built at stage 16. So if you ever do the Warner Brothers studio tour, and that's separate from the area that I talked about that's being demolished, right? So that was a totally different. The Warner Ranch was separate from their main studio, but the studio, stage 16, you'll actually see the plaque of the various films that were filmed there, and I'll show you a few images here. But there's a storyboard as well, and some of the storyboard stuff goes for a lot of money through these different sites and different collectors, if you will. But the pirate ship was definitely epic. Now, the production team, if you did not know, they used the ship from the 1940 film The Seahawk as a direct inspiration for the Inferno. Construction took 2.5 months. That was in secrecy away from the cast. There's a famous comment that Dick Donner mentions where the cast, the Goonies, had not seen the ship. There's a little bit of there's one caveat on that. The scene that we see in the film, I think I'll talk about this in a few moments, but it was the second take, my understanding, that you see on film, because I think the first take they used some language that they couldn't include in the film, but the kids were shrouded in secrecy and they didn't know what the ship looked like. They knew what was going to happen, so when they turned around, they were really, really surprised, which was super cool. Now, the ship itself measured reportedly 105 feet, with the largest sail on the ship measuring 30 feet by 60 feet. Materials for the sails measured up to 7,000 square feet, and some reportedly borrowed from WED, which was Walt Disney Enterprises, who were working on Disneyland's sailing ship Columbia at the time. Now, the ship was used in some scenes for the Goonies Are Good Enough video, so if you check that out, you'll see that. The scene where the Goonies first see the ship, as I mentioned, the second time the child actors got a chance to see it, a trick that Richard Donner intended to provoke a genuine surprise at the kids' performance. The first attempt resulted in the kids swearing so much that a second take was required. So we've often heard over the course of time that when the kids turn around, they're generally surprised. Of course, he had to have them do that a second time, but certainly they were excited to see When I Willie ship and to have found it. Now, a 5-foot replica was created by ILM, the Industrial Light and Magic team. If you've never watched that documentary on Disney Plus, it's amazing. I've always had a lot of respect for ILM and everything that they've done with their movie magic. Sadly, the ship was destroyed after the movie was filmed, as seemingly nobody wanted it. I've read this many, many, many times that they wanted to even give away the ship. I don't think they were even going to charge anyone other than, hey, come disassemble it. I mean, how would you even get it out of there? But if you think about today, more than likely, I think if this film, it wouldn't be made today, right, in that sense. But if it was, I would think that somebody would come in and go, wow, just the amount of labor, 2.5 months and the lumber and all that, someone would have taken it to put it at their resort or something. But certainly back in, call it mid-85, maybe the first quarter of 85, nobody was a taker. Okay, so we're going to round this out. I know a little long for some YouTubers, but for our listeners on the various podcast platforms, thank you so much. Again, consider subscribing. It's free, and we do free content every other week, but we have somewhere around 350 episodes. So the lost scene, this is a big one, so I kind of left this one towards the end. For years, there were rumblings of a Steven Spielberg filmed scene with the gorillas. Okay, so if you don't believe me, stick with me here. I'm going to show you some images. Now, over the course of time, various folks have leaked and trickled out some of these images, including the red Mustang, the shot you see here with the two gentlemen in the stunt or in the costumes that look very, very real. And then, of course, Troy's Mustang as well in the cop car. So a few of these things have come out over the course of time, as well as I mentioned a couple of the storyboard drawings, right? So this is a very, very cool one. I don't know who drew this, but it's super cool. And the whole thought process was, if you think back to the film, when the kids are underground and they're shaking the pipes, and you think of the person that was, taking a drink of water. There's the old guy trying to take a shower. I think Troy's in the the restroom, right, on the toilet. And you kind of have some of those gags. Well, this was going to be one that basically by moving those pipes around, that it was going to let the gorillas out of the zoo, which sounds kind of crazy. Now, something I posted this in the past, this one image, and I don't know that I've ever seen anyone talk about this, but you can follow me on one of my pages is Back to the Future Legacy. The other big one that I primarily post on is ROUR Lifestyle Podcast. But my kind of Amblin, it started as Back to the Future mostly, but of course, Amblin World, Steven Spielberg type films. I posted this image that I'm showing you now, and that directly ties into the gorilla scenes. Now, in the film, when Mikey is in his bedroom, you basically see, if you look on the wall, I think this is a little bit of foreshadowing. And of course, if you know Steven Spielberg films, you know that there's a lot of Easter eggs, if you will. There's a Easter egg that I wasn't going to talk about today, but that ties in from the Goonies all the way to Jurassic Park. Many of you know about that. If you haven't, Google it. Yeah, Jurassic Park, Goonies, costumes, right? So it's really neat. There's a lot of cool stuff. But something that I've never really seen anybody talk about, and doesn't mean that it hasn't been, but if you look on the wall, you see the two, what looks like kind of a gorilla style, coconuts. I don't know what you want to call them, but they do, to me, foreshadow a little bit of what's to come. Of course, in the film, these scenes were cut, so we do not see them, but I'm going to show you guys this little treat here in just a moment. Now, the storyboard sketch here is showing, for those that did not know, it was Bonzo the Great and Bertha. Those were the names of the two gorillas. And instead of actual gorillas, Spielberg and Donner, not those two, but they cast two stunt performers, Rick Brown and Kent Hayes, who put the gorilla suits on. Those suits were made for the 1984 film Graystroke, The Legend of Tarzan, believe it or not. So that's one of the storyboard images. Now, what I want to do is I want to thank Linda of Note. I'll thank her here in just a moment officially, but because of her, we have access to this. I see a lot of pages, and unfortunately, in the social media world that we live in, especially with YouTube, there's a lot of folks that will find something and they just take it, and I just saved it from this page, and unfortunately, you get back to the root of like who actually released it, who gets the credit for it. And you could argue, hey, it's cutting room scenes and things like that. Steven Spielberg's filmed it, reportedly, some of these scenes. But I want to thank Linda of Note because a lot of this wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the relationships they had and the people that saved this stuff. So let's check out the scene now here real quick.
All right, son. Where shall we begin?
Well, Daddy, why don't we start with the Walshes?
I like the way you think, boy. Let's go.
All right.
All right, son. Where shall we begin?
Well, Daddy, why don't we start with the Walshes?
I like the way you think, boy. Let's go.
All right.
All right, son. Where shall we begin?
Well, Daddy, why don't we start with the Walshes?
I like the way you think, boy. Let's go.
All right.
Okay, pretty cool. And I want to wrap it up with the last couple things. So alternate ending. So this was thought to have been lost forever. I heard that for years and years and years. Now, I bet Mikey could have found it if he needed to. The Goonies always stick together. But the alternate ending of the film surfaced a few years back, again, thanks to Linda of Note via Instagram. Now, she thanked Mark A. Marshall, and he said, no problem. Some of these folks, even though I think when things said that they're lost forever, that certainly just means that they don't intend to release it. But somewhere, someone had it in the vault, and certainly they released it. And I want to thank Linda. Linda's according to her Instagram, she's a chronicler of Sean Astin. I think I'm saying that word right. But what I want to do is I want to look at the alternate ending now. If I recall correctly, the one that she released, and I've reshared and always credited her and Mark A. Marshall for this, I believe a little bit extended version has been released as well. And I forget if she released the whole. She released 3 of them, 3 different gems, if you will, pun intended. But let's jump into the scene right now.
So where are you guys gonna go on the day after?
Motor City. My dad's gonna be shipping clerk at the Detroit radio plant.
Yeah, my dad wants to stick around the San Andreas Fault. He said there's gonna be a lot of plumbing action there someday.
Yeah, my dad's taking us to New York. Come on, big guy. Easy, big guy. Busted that thing was. Yeah, my dad thinks that he can get the big guy a job with the Rangers as head goalie. My big brother.
My dad's sailing us up to Canada. He says we're gonna stay wherever the mackerel run.
We're not sticking around either. Daddy's moving his legal practice to Boston, sending me to Sarah Lawrence.
We don't have a plan yet. My dad just stares at stuff. So we're gonna move in with my grandma until we can get one end to meet the other end. What that means.
Come on, you guys. There's Goonies everywhere. You guys won't be lonely for too long. Come on, let's get this truck loaded.
Okay,
Let's
come
go.
on, Sloth. Okay, watch it. Okay, now see, boy, this is pretty good. See, me and you're gonna have a fun time, you know? See, there was once this Chinese restaurant out here that you could OD on for $5. It was really great. Okay, hold on a second. See, you know what I busted that statue? You see, he can, Joe Rogan can flying out on that thing. Híjole, ¿cómo se ruido esa puerta? Chillo aquí. Mira, sí.
Señora Watch! ¡Estamos ricos! ¡Save the Goonies! ¡Save the Goonies! Mira nomás, ya tenemos mucho dinero. ¡No firme! Mira nomás. ¿Cuánto dinero tenemos aquí? Señor Watch, aquí hay mucho dinero. Mire nomás, no firme.
What does she mean?
What does it mean now?
No school. Come on. No drive. No firme. Salve los Goonies, señor Watch. No soy. No. Salve los Goonies. Salve.
Okay, so pretty cool. In various YouTubers that have just downloaded it and reshared it without giving any credit, I found it on Facebook and I just saved it. They, of course, there'll be a lot of comments on there. Wow, I'm glad they stuck with the ending that they did. So that's the cool thing about a film that you fall in love with. You sometimes probably realize, like, wow, the version I know in my head, that's the real version. We don't need the alternate. But as a fan of a film or as a super fan, certainly it's cool to go back and see some of that. Now, some of you are scratching your head going, wow, you did a top 10, but you didn't talk about the octopus. So many of you watching this already know about the famous topic, the octopus. But for casual fans, I want to just mention this. In the film, there is an octopus. There was even a trading card. If you look up the Goonies trading card, the octopus scene is perhaps the most well-known deleted scene in the Goonies. Despite its removal, it is still referenced in the final product, as Data mentions an octopus when the media asks him about their night at the end of the film. Music used in this scene, 8 Arms to Hold You by Goon Squad, believe it or not, does appear on the original motion picture soundtrack. Now, my wife and I, she's not a huge Super Goonies fan like I am. She likes the film. But she remembers as a child watching it going, the octopus. And so many people, if you were tuned in to these films and you were really watching it, you probably were scratching your head as well. Now, some people have reported that in the, I don't know if it was late 80s, early 90s, watching this film on the Disney Channel, that they did see those images because I think there was a cut of the film with it. So many people did see it. That's how most people, I think, know about it. Of course, the scene is available on YouTube, the DVD, and so on and so forth. Now, after the Goonies rode down the water slide into the lagoon, for those that didn't know, housing, of course, the Inferno, Steph and Mouth are attacked by an octopus, which drags them down into the water. Data comes to the rescue, shoving a tape player, yes, into the mouth, which causes it to breakdance away, believe it or not. So a lot of folks have said, including Sean Astin, he was quoted with saying the octopus just always sucked and was removed from being too hokey looking overall. So that's the story there. Now, if you didn't know, or maybe you haven't watched the Cyndi Lauper video in forever, I'm going to put a link in the description. Go and watch the full 12-minute version, even if you skip through it. If you get to about the 8-minute mark, the octopus, yes, believe it or not, this is maybe where you saw it as well, not just on the trading card, not just on the Disney Channel cut, but also on the via the Cyndi Lauper longer extended video, 12 minutes. About at the 8-minute mark, the octopus does make an appearance. Of course, they're on the set. It wasn't, as I talked about earlier, with the Warner Brother setup there where they did it at the gas station that's no longer there. It wasn't all filmed there. Again, it's kind of this two-part, and at the 8-minute mark, you'll see that was at the Warner Brothers studio. In closing, I know if you're on YouTube and you stayed the whole time, thank you so much. Bonus, why is this such a timeless film? And I'm showing just kind of an image here of a few of my collection. Not everything. Over the course of time, I've added a few things. I certainly don't have the biggest collection. There's different folks on Instagram that just have amazing collections. But, going to Astoria, seeing the Oregon Film Museum, which, by the way, I'm wearing my shirt here that I purchased from there. It was just such a great time. And I think when you think many of us growing up in the late 70s, I was born in the late 70s, kind of as an 80s child, loved the 90s as well. So many great things were happening. You had the adventure, you had the BMX bikes, kids were hanging out. There was the possibility that they weren't going to see each other again, right? Because of the plot of the film. And it just was epic. And I think many of us look back and say, wow, we grew up in the best decade. And even if you didn't, I think a lot of people will appreciate the film. I do think over the course of time, like younger kids, I'm always curious. I think a lot of parents do play the film for their children once they get to a certain age. And I think they do pass it on. I think people do. The younger generation, I've got two nieces, maybe they'll eventually watch it. They haven't yet. And maybe they will one day go, wow, I remember watching that with my uncle. That was such a cool movie. It was adventure. Kids still like to ride bikes, I think, up to a certain age. But certainly depends where you live. I'm in Florida. It's super hot. And I want to thank you. If you are a new viewer, again, check us out. We talk a lot about mini trucks. Again, shout out to my friend Jeff at Mini Garage. He does a lot of inspirational videos about working on mini trucks. And thanks again, Jeff, for the Goonies hat. He lives up in Oregon. Ironically. And I want to thank Ron Perkins. Years ago when I had an opportunity to go up to Oregon, it was in thanks to him and his club mates up there in RA, Relaxed Atmosphere, for making the travel possible and allowing me to kind of get up and do something as well that I really wanted to do for a long time. Let me know what I should have included. There's a lot of little Easter eggs. If you like what I did here, maybe I'll do a condensed version that's a lot shorter. Maybe I'll do more versions as well. But certainly OLP for short, but it's our lifestyle podcast. Check us out via any platform, as well as Facebook and Instagram. We post a lot of cool stuff, trucks, old school BMX, hip hop, you name it. Really appreciate the support. Thanks to our title sponsor, Scrapin' the Coast, SCRAPIN, the Coast. If you like car shows, lifted, lowered, hot rods, dualies, mini trucks, a little bit of old school BMX sometimes. Definitely some air conditioning in Biloxi, June 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Thank you for all the support, and stay on the rise, ODB. We out of here. Peace.